Somebody will edit it.
All right, the recording has started. All right, here we go. I'm starting with a bite from Durkin talking about something slightly unrelated, but I needed to get her voice at the top there. Anyway, here we go. 3, 2, 1. That's Mayor Jenny Durk. Sorry, let me take off. That's really okay. That's really bad. All right, here we go. Auspicious start. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Well, that's Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin right there at a recent announcement about investing more money in rent-restricted, income-restricted units in the city of Seattle. She's going to be talking a lot more about making investments like this as she unveils her annual budget proposal here in the last week of September. What are we going to see in that budget? How is the city council going to react to it? And what ordinances will the council be squeezing in as the budget process gets underway? Well, guess what, folks? We're going to answer those questions and a whole lot more here on Seattle News, Views, and Brews, your coffee break political podcast. I'm Brian Callanan. I am a host on Seattle Channel. The views expressed here are my own. And we've got a lot to cover this week. And so I wanted to make sure that I brought in the always affable Kevin Schofield of Seattle City Council Insight. He's been working on budget school with Converge Media over the last couple of weeks. And I just wanted to ask how it's going at budget school. Are the other kids being nice? Did you remember your locker combination? Is the cafeteria food any good, or what's going on?
Well, they leave apples on our desks all the time. Like,
of course.
I should leave an apple on the desk. We got a couple more episodes we're going to record this afternoon, so maybe I'll see if I can bring that as a prop. But I noticed, we both got the memo on the dress code today.
Got the lids on, man. This is a team that has ever so slightly that much of a chance, and we're going to see what happens this week with that. So thank you, Kevin, as always, for working on the stuff you do. Make sure you check out Budget School on Converge Media here. Thanks also to City Grind Espresso, our background noise sponsor for the audio podcast. A grand reopening at their City Hall location, October 4th, just in time for budget caffeination there. Please do support them and other small businesses too. Thanks also to our show patrons. Marcia just joined us a few days ago. Thank you for your support, Marcia. We're hoping even more of you can join in, and we are asking for a $10 pledge if you would, so you can join our mug club, and we will send you one of these handy-dandy Seattle News, Views, and Brews coffee mugs. Make sure you get one. We will also feature your mug on the show with our mug shot of the week. This week, it's Cliff. He actually sent in a bunch of great photos. Here's one amidst a cascade of flowers, a riot of color there. Perfect. As we end summer and head into fall, thank you, Cliff. Thank you to all of our patrons. If you want to join in and support local journalism, it's Seattle News, Views, and Brews on Patreon. Thank you for your support. We also thank Converge Media. Converge airs the video version of our podcast on their YouTube channel Wednesday nights at 7. Let's get going with right here, right now. Okay. All right. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. I'm going to wait for the plane. God, it buzzes the house, man. Watch out.
Yeah.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Well, Mayor Jenny Durkin is presenting her fourth and final budget proposal to the City Council this week as she wraps up her one term in office. Kevin, before we get into the nuts and bolts of how this process is going to work, what are we expecting to see from Mayor Durkin in terms of her proposal? She's talked a lot about homelessness, housing, public safety, equity during her time in office. What do you think we're going to see?
I think it's going to be super interesting. This, of course, is a lame duck budget, right? She is proposing it. It's going to get passed this fall, and then she's leaving office, and one of our two new mayors is going to be covering it. This is the first year that they actually have some flexibility over how to spend the payroll tax dollars. So we're going to council on that. We're going to see. Another interesting part I've been talking with the city budget office director, Ben Noble, about is the revenue outlook. And revenue definitely strengthened over the course of this year in terms of their projections for next year. But they're a little worried that in the last month or so, with the resurgence of Delta, that the economy it may sort of be faltering just a little bit, or not continuing to improve as much as they thought they would. So they're maybe a little worried about softening the revenues. So Dr. Noble told me that one of the things that they're looking at doing is figuring out, as they propose a mayor's budget, some places where they could obviously, just cut back a little bit of money if they needed to. So
Right.
they're going to mark a few places to say, if we need to, we get to November and do the final revenue outlook for next year.
Yeah.
If things aren't looking quite as good, here
Mhm.
are some places to cut. So that's going to
Sure.
get built into it.
Okay.
We've got homelessness. Next year is the year that the Regional Homelessness Authority is supposed to take over that.
Yep.
So rather than doing a bunch of detailed planning,
Mhm.
what's supposed to happen is the city is supposed to write a big check to
Right.
the RHA.
Yeah.
And we'll see how comfortable the city council feels with doing that.
Yeah.
And the mayor, for that matter.
Yeah.
SPD budget. There continue to be pressures on cutting SPD's budget. What's the mayor going to do with that? What is the city council going to do with that? That's going to be very, very interesting, right? So I think those are a bunch of the big things that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, and I wanted to make sure I asked too. I know we've talked about the possibility of Amazon maybe suing the city once the payroll tax starts getting collected in January there. Is that one of those budget surprises ahead? I just wonder what's going to happen over the next couple of months.
Yeah, it's certainly a good question as to whether the mayor, well, the city as a whole should be, doing contingencies for that. I'm not that worried about it.
Okay.
And first of all, it's something that would take a long time to work its way through the courts. The second is
Right.
that, if Amazon sued, what they would be suing over is the fact that the payroll tax basically imposes a higher tax on them than everyone else.
Than anyone else, right?
And one of the potential outcomes of that, if they're successful with that, is their tax rate gets rolled back to what everybody else's is.
Sure.
And for the most part, that is how the city has been projecting revenues from the payroll tax.
Okay.
They have not assumed at this point a higher rate for Amazon than everybody else.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So if there's an outside chance, based on what they call severability rules,
Yes.
that the whole thing gets tossed if
Right.
Amazon were to challenge it.
Yeah.
But I think it's just as likely that they come back and say, no, you can't have a separate tax, rate just for Amazon.
Right. Right.
They have to be charged the same rate as everybody else.
Okay. Got it.
But we'll see. The courts are hard to predict. God only knows what they're going to do with this.
Yeah. And I know there are a ton of different ways to be looking at the budget here. Invite everybody to stay engaged with this. Check out Budget School on Converge. Also, check out the first public hearing for the budget coming up October 12th on Seattle Channel. So a lot still ahead with that. And Kevin, as the budget process begins, the council is working on cranking out a few last pieces of legislation this week here at the end of September. First up, an ordinance requiring 180 days notice, 6 months for rent increases. Kevin, Councilmember Sawant is sponsoring this. Councilmember Peterson abstaining on his vote from it. I wanted to talk about this one first. What impact will this ordinance have on the rental market?
Well, there's been a lot of discussion of this in the news this past week, and a lot of public comment, obviously, from both sides in this. And in a tight housing market, the argument for doing something like the 180 days notice, is that if somebody needs to find a cheaper place to live, it's hard to do that in 60 days right now, right? So giving them more time gives them a chance to actually go find a new place, right? 180 days is a lot. There are several cities that have 90 days or 120 days. So 180, 6 months is a long time.
It's a long time. Yeah.
And a lot of landlords have complained, my contractors, my plumber, the other guys that I use to do this, they don't give me 180 days notice before they start increasing their rates. So, you're making me stuck in the middle of this. And Councilmember Peterson abstaining on this, it's sort of a procedural thing that he's doing.
He's been doing a lot of that. Yeah.
He could just say no. Right. If he says no in committee, and what comes out of committee is a divided report, and it takes an extra week before that bill can come up before the full council for a final vote. Right. Okay. So abstaining doesn't count as a no vote. It doesn't turn into a mixed report, and they can, and it'll come up on this coming Monday.
Yeah.
instead of a week later, right? So
Got it.
it's kind of procedural courtesy that they all do for each other,
Mhm.
so they're not just kind of like slowing down the entire works.
Right,
On
right.
these things.
I wanted to make sure I touched on too. There's another ordinance to help tenants with the cost of relocation. If their rent goes up 10% or more, a landlord would be required to pay 3 times the amount of monthly housing costs per household. Councilmember Juarez happens to be abstaining on this one, and this would mean some cost for the city too. This is something where there'd be an investment in infrastructure. It would take about 6 to 9 months to set up here, 1.5 new employees to handle the code compliance here for the city here. This is a lot potentially that the city's asking for. Again, another measure sponsored by Councilmember Sawant.
Another measure sponsored by Councilmember Swan, and as you said, there's actually a lot of infrastructure involved in this because the
Yeah.
relocation assistance payments would basically go through the city. Right. The
Right.
city would be
Right.
administering this. The money would go to them, and then they would turn around and pay it out to the tenants. So
Okay.
there's a lot of administrative work. I think in the end, it would take more than the number of people that they're suggesting now that it would take to actually implement that whole program. Councilmember Peterson did in fact get accepted an amendment to this one, and that amendment
smaller landlords thing.
It only, well, he did a smaller landlords thing for the first one for the 180 days notice.
You got it.
For this, and that didn't go through. For this one, he put forward an amendment that did get accepted, which would limit it to just tenants who are making 80% of the annual median income or less.
Right. He's trying to make sure that he's focused on the people who really need the help. Isn't that what's going on there?
And so, people who can afford to pay it, who really don't need the relocation assistance. Right. We don't need to create more bureaucracy around them.
Right.
But this is definitely a high bureaucracy kind of thing. And this is the kind of thing that, quite honestly, Sawant is famous for. She actually likes creating, if you look at her proposal for rent control, which she's putting back on the table. She's going
to be bringing it up again. Yeah.
And she says that she's going to call for a vote in her committee meeting in December. Assuming she's not recalled before then.
Yes. Right.
That calls for basically a 49-person rent commission across the city with 7-person sort of subcommissions for each of the 7 state council districts. And all 49 of those folks, well, I guess 49 of them are elected positions.
Right.
So there will be 49 more elected positions every couple of years.
Wow.
And like this whole bureaucracy about how variances to, exceptions to, the rent cap need to be reviewed and processed. All this. So just an enormous amount of bureaucracy, as if rent control, as if there weren't already a consensus among economists that rent control is bad policy.
And it's prohibited by the state.
And it's prohibited by the state. Let's add a big bureaucracy on top of that. So just for fun.
Oh man, well, fun. That's what the city council is all about in our coverage of it too.
Fun.
That's that they put the fun back in funeral, I tell you. All right, up next, a bit more on what's next with the eviction moratorium at the city and state levels. That's ahead on Now Hear This. Okay, this is kind of working. Sorry, I nuked you earlier and didn't mean to, but I think I can work around it with an edit.
It's fine.
Thanks, dude. All right, this looks a lot slicker though. So anyway, all right. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so in the past week, we have seen the city of Seattle extend its eviction moratorium for a 6th time through January 15th of next year. That was Tuesday, which made for an interesting press conference for Governor Inslee on Thursday as he talked about ending the state's eviction moratorium on October 31st. Here's why he said he made the extension. Crap. Okay, there we are. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. So, Kevin, let's talk first about the move by Mayor Durkin. She handed off a bit of a headache to her successor. I know that. Whoever gets the job of mayor is literally going to have to act on the eviction moratorium as the first thing they do. But looking at that, why do you think she made that extension to January 15th? I wanted to make sure I talked about that. We do have a lot of people who are in arrears when it comes to their rent in Seattle, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think the biggest part is still that rent assistance is getting pushed out very slowly. Right?
Yes.
It's turned it got caught up at the beginning with approval rules from the feds for the money that they were heading down, because most of this money is coming from the federal government.
Federal government, right?
And that finally got sorted out about a month ago, and it's just
Yeah.
been slow. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
people who still need this money that it hasn't gotten out to yet,
Yeah.
and they're very, very concerned about the moratorium, which is supposed to lift at the end of the month.
Yeah, right.
And the big, the downsides of what was likely to happen with that. So
Yeah.
they push it out. I think, the problem with this, of course, every time they do this further, it looks less and less temporary, right?
Right.
And
right.
that makes the legal underpinnings for this more and more difficult. At this point, over the summer, the U.S. Supreme Court has issued 2 different rulings that really strongly suggest they're spoiling for a fight.
Oh yeah, no, and
Right.
I really thought the Biden administration, with trying to really take off some of those restrictions with the U.S. Treasury funds, they're basically saying, okay, you don't have to prove the hardship or whatever else, just self-report that you've got it. So maybe there's going to be some more fraud coming from that, but hopefully some more of this money will go out, because they're scared of the Supreme Court. It sure seems like here.
Yeah, and there was a recent ruling in one of the lawsuits against the city of Seattle and the state over their eviction moratoriums, where that the ruling is still pending because it was done by a magistrate judge, and the official judge still has to sign off on that. But the magistrate judge said, largely, some of the claims against this I'm going to dismiss just because they're moot, because it is supposed to expire at the end of September, and now it's not expiring at the end of September anymore. So
we touched on this last week. This is crazy.
So the legal machinations around this are getting more and more complicated, and less clearly in favor of the tenants. Because and you can understand it at some level, because there are a bunch of landlords who've now gone, it's going to be close to 2 years by the time we get to January 15th.
Right.
Who have not been receiving rent. Right.
And
that doesn't mean, they're still required to, pay the property taxes.
Sure.
They're still required
maintenance,
to
whatever.
do all the maintenance and keep up with, the standards for this. And they have no income from these properties. Right. So, it's really shifted the financial burden from one set of folks to a different set of folks. You can feel, less bad about the large corporate, corporations that manage large numbers of individual rental units.
Yes.
But
Okay.
for the smaller landlords, this, at some point just becomes an unbearable financial burden. And there's some recent data coming out from the city around their rental registration and inspection ordinance that requires landlords to register their units, that says that over the last year, there's been a noticeable decrease in the number of units that are registered, a larger increase in the number of landlords. So it may just be, it's unclear at this point whether there's just some consolidation going on the landlord side, or whether there are a bunch of rental units that are just being sold off and taken off the market altogether during the pandemic. So, I think at some point we may see a little bit more reckoning when we get more data. We don't have all the data yet. We don't really know yet whether this is a one-off or it's a trend. But with all the rental tenant protections that have gone in place over the last 2 years, has it turned into an accumulative effect that is actually having an effect on the number of rental units that's out there?
You certainly hear that pushback from smaller landlords on this. I know I get a ton of tweets about that, so I know the city council is getting that too. But I just wanted to look at what Governor Inslee is trying to do here. He set this spooky deadline of October 31st there with Halloween, and I wonder what he's seeing that Mayor Durkin might not be seeing, because in a number of the counties, I know King County in particular, less than 7%, I saw this on King recently, less than 7% of the aid that's actually available has actually been distributed. So what's Governor Inslee seeing that says to him, hey, you know what, ending this on October 31st is a good idea statewide?
To be blunt, I think he has better lawyers.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't at all be surprised if his lawyers are telling him very clearly, look, The legal underpinnings of
smart.
this are getting weaker with every week that goes by.
Yeah.
And continuing to push this out there, you have to have very firm reasons. And the reason, best reason right now is because it's been so slow to get that federal aid out there. But, and in another month, maybe you can extend it another month.
Sure.
Right. But to say that it's going out to January. That's really, I mean, I talked to the mayor's office back in the middle of the summer.
Yeah.
And they were really, they told me that the mayor was very skeptical about extending it beyond September.
Yeah.
Extremely skeptical. And, she's changed her mind because of Delta and because of the slow trickle of rental assistance going out there.
Sure.
But this just gets tougher and tougher.
Oh, yeah. And very tough for our new mayor to handle it. So I wanted to talk about something else the mayor did, Kevin, that you raised some concerns about in SEC Insight, because there's a storm coming in to Inner Bay in more ways than one. The city working on a process to allow the Seattle Storm, our championship WNBA team, to build a practice facility in this industrial area of Inner Bay. The mayor and the council have gone out of their way to say this isn't a spot zone. This isn't an illegal zoning maneuver. But I know you had something to say about that, Kevin. What's going on with this?
Oh my God, you're going to get me wound up on this, aren't you?
I know. I saw.
I have to preface by saying I love the Storm.
I do too. It's a great team, right?
I've been to a bunch of their games. I love the family-friendly atmosphere. I love the culture around the team and the players, and the players and the owners and leadership have become pillars of our community. I love all that.
Yeah.
Right. And yet the mayor is pushing through something which is arguably illegal to allow them to build a practice facility up to 50,000 square feet in the middle of the Inner Bay industrial area, right after there've been a number of reports including from the mayor's own task force saying, hey, we need to do everything we can to strengthen protections for our ever shrinking industrial areas so that we don't continue to lose more and more of them to other non-industrial uses, like, say, a sports practice facility, or housing, or another Whole Foods, or whatever it is this week that people are trying to repurpose industrial lands to do.
Right.
But this is really a spot zone, which is where the city changes zoning in a very small area, inconsistent with the zoning in the surrounding area, to benefit, or occasionally, to the detriment of a specific owner. Right. You may recall a couple of years ago we had this thing with the Showbox.
Oh yeah.
Where the city tried to extend the Pike Place Market historical area to stop the Showbox from being redeveloped. Right. And a judge came in and said that is clearly a spot rezone. Right. And that's illegal. Right. And I posted an article late last week talking about a little bit about sort of what the Washington Supreme Court has said about the reasons why spot zones are illegal. Right. And I won't go into all of it here, but basically, zoning itself is a restriction on property rights. Right. But zoning is done over large areas as part of preserving the best interest of the public. Sure. Right? Okay. So there's a reason that governments come in and do that. But spot zoning, by definition, is not about large areas. It's about small areas. So there, you basically said you're restricting property rights, but you're doing it to the benefit of a specific person or interest, or to their detriment, and not the larger best interest of the city or the people in the city, right? So there's so that's why they're illegal. Okay. And there was a public hearing last week. Sure. Where some of the city council members, first of all, just basically disclosed that they've been in on this for quite a while.
Long time. Right? Yeah.
And while three of them, council members Strauss, Lewis, and Juarez, all talked about how no, this is not a spot rezone. Right. They then went on to basically confirm it's a spot rezone. Right. Where Juarez says not a spot rezone, but we're doing this for the storm. Right. And why shouldn't we do this for the storm? And by the way, they have a shovel-ready project. Right. And Lewis said it's not a spot rezone. Now let me tell you all about the site. Right.
So it's specific about the site. And then
And
Strauss was saying
and
we've got these other parcels involved
Strauss
too.
said,
Yeah.
no, this rezone covers 45 parcels.
Mm-hmm.
And what he didn't say was 2 of those
Yeah.
parcels are in the middle of the BNSF rail yard,
Yeah.
and 30 of them
Mm-hmm.
are for parcels that are less than 6,000 square feet. And
Yeah.
just for the record,
Mm-hmm.
an NBA, WNBA regulation basketball court,
Mm-hmm.
including the required out of bounds areas, is
Right.
6,600 square feet.
Yeah.
So you can't even put a basketball court in a parcel
Yeah.
that's less than 6,000, and that's
Right.
30 out of the 45
Right.
parcels.
I guess just to wrap this up quickly, Kevin, I don't think anyone's going to seek to adjudicate
No.
this in court. It wouldn't seem like.
No.
But what are your thoughts there?
No. This is the city council is going to pass this.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to challenge it in court. First of all, because almost nobody is standing to challenge it in court. Right.
Yeah.
You would have to have some local property interest to be able to do that.
Right.
And because nobody wants to go against the storm, because we all love the storm.
Yeah, I
right.
know.
So who's going to want to do that, right? But I'll just wrap this up by saying,
sure.
I do have problems when our city officials start looking the other way on legal requirements, because they like the people who are involved in it.
Yeah.
Right? Because that is the slippery slope to nepotism.
Oh yeah.
And to authoritarianism. It's like, we don't care about the law when it's people we like.
Yeah.
Right. You can't do that, right?
No.
You just can't do that.
Okay. Right. All right. I know we've talked about this issue in a number of different ways, but I appreciate you bringing this one up. It's a good story behind the story. All right. Take me to the bridge, the pedestrian bridge up at Northgate, a multimodal transportation geek out. It's coming up on What's Next. All right.
You got me all wound up.
I know, man. It's good. All right. 3, 2, 1. All right, Kevin's coming down from his rant. He's taking the deep breath. He's back with us here. I just wanted to point out some great news, Kevin, coming up on October 2nd. Link Light Rail goes live up at Northgate, and the new John Lewis Memorial Bridge for pedestrians will open too. Just briefly, if you could touch on this, what does this mean for transit in our region, the Northgate neighborhood too? This is a really big deal for Seattle.
And it's not just Northgate. Remember, this
That's
is the U District station. This is the Roosevelt station as well, right? And I live sort of equidistant from the U District and Roosevelt station, so I'm going to be a heavy user of those. That's going to cut a lot of time off of my commute when I have to go downtown. So I'm super excited about them too. But for Northgate, where there's just been all this revitalization,
the Kraken,
doing the Kraken is and their Iceplex is now open, and they just last week had the first Kraken training camp there.
Yes,
so
big deal.
So they're really moving forward fast with that. There's all sorts of new affordable housing being built there.
Sure.
As you mentioned, the new pedestrian bridge over to the college on the other side. To the communities on the other side is also opening on October 2nd. So this is really a big deal for the community. And it's part of something that's been just really a game-changing investment over the last couple of years. There's a couple new affordable housing projects sponsored by the city and the county that are just getting underway right now. So even over the next few years, we're going to see huge additional investments going in. It's a great thing for the community. And it's a great thing for the city as a whole, and it really sort of establishes Northgate as a new urban center for the city.
No, we're going to see some growth there for sure. So thanks for bringing it up. Looking forward to what happens there on October 2nd. I wanted to make another note about next week. National Voter Registration Day is September 28th. So figure it out, people. The deadline's October 25th to vote in the general election. Please do not put it off there. But I wanted to end the show, as we always do, to a nod toward these delicious treats that we like to have on our coffee break. Kevin's got the baking expertise. I do a lot of chewing, very thoughtful chewing, I should point out here. And Kevin, I'll bring it up right here. What do we got? We have my daughter, who recently made some klakkaka, I believe is how you say it. A Swedish cake literally means chocolate cake. I'll give you a little view right there.
Oh, look at that.
Ooh, yeah, mouth is watering. So what makes this cake great is that it's very gooey when you bake it here. It kind of turned into a little bit more of a brownie right now. But when she was baking it, she was futzing around with the oven temperature and how long do you bake it? How do you make a good gooey cake? Is there a secret there that you've used for this kind of thing? While I chew, I'll let you answer.
Gooey cake.
Yeah, I guess you just underbake it or
I
what?
mean, I mean,
Hmm.
the thing with chocolate is it's all about temperature,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's all
Mm-hmm.
about, you have to temper it carefully if you're trying to get that shine on the chocolate
Mm-hmm.
because,
Ooh.
its sort of chemical structure changes as it goes through different temperature,
Right.
and chocolate is awesome just in and of itself
Mm-hmm.
because of temperature, right? Because
Right.
it is a thing that is solid at room temperature
Yeah.
and liquid at body temperature. It
Right.
literally melts in your mouth, right?
Yeah,
You eat
that's
it and
that's
it
why
melts
I
in your
bathe
mouth
in
as it moves,
chocolate
as
every
it
other
makes that
day. Yeah.
transition, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is a case where if you're working with chocolate, and you're working with it on the stove, you need a really good instant read thermometer. If you're working with
Yes.
it in your oven, you need a separate, really good oven thermometer because you
Yep.
cannot trust the thermostat that's built into your oven. Almost all of them are wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You need a separate, really good oven thermometer.
Right.
It'll cost you $10-15. And if you
Sure.
do any serious baking, it's the best investment you'll ever make
Oh
because you
man.
really know what the temperature is in your oven. And with something
Wow.
like chocolate, 10
Mm-hmm.
degrees can make a huge difference about
Wow.
how
Okay.
things come out.
Okay. All
So
right. Well, less than 3 months till Christmas at this point. So I guess we better start the shopping now for an oven thermometer. I can't wait. Kevin, thank you as always. Thanks always to our patrons as well. Everyone who's listening out there. It's Seattle News, Views and Brews, where you can always find out what's brewing in local politics. Please do subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you might listen. Again, please do become a patron on Patreon if you like what you're hearing. We could always use your support. Thanks also for watching on Converge Media 2, and we will see you next time. Great. I think when I end the broadcast, I hope I don't F this up. End broadcast. I'm going to see what happens.
don't cut us off.
It probably will. I might give you a bounce back. But if not, dude, have an awesome day. I think this looked a lot better, and I'm hoping it sounds better too.
Yeah, and I guess starting next week or whenever you get up to speed on that, you can start bringing in the mugshot images yourself. Right,
Yeah,
rather than
that would probably be smart. I know. I need to
That's
do
fine.
less of that. Yeah.
Hey, this is first time. Like this is going
We
to take
learn every
you.
week.
Yeah, I've been meaning to get up to speed on StreamYard as well, but
it's a great technology, dude, and worth. It's a $20 a month thing, but I thought it was worth it. So anyway,
we've got 4 episodes of Budget School in the can.
Cool.
Amari and I are recording 2 more this afternoon, and that'll give us a 6 sort of pre-budget stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
And then next week we start with the play-by-play.
Go get it, man. Go get it. All right.
So it's
there
good,
might be
and it's getting passed around the city. It's actually
good.
Kind of like Omari and I are pretty surprised at the number of people who like jumped on. And
he was always gratifying, man.
He was in a pre-meeting last week for some like public session he's doing with 3 black leaders, black business leaders, and they're like, "Hey, I like somebody forwarded me this link on this budget school thing you're doing. Like, we're gonna pass that around to everybody." It's like, whoa,
there you go.
It's like we hit a nerve with this thing.
It's good.
And
good.
I'm hope
sure
so.
There's going to be some crossover with this, with the podcast here too. But thanks for doing it, man. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. I got a great 20-minute interview with Ben Noble yesterday.
Oh, good. Cool.
On the budget stuff. So
the good
doctor.
That's gonna be great. Okay. All right. Good.
The doctor.
Cool,
all right.
man.
You take
All
care.
right. Thanks a lot, man. See ya.